Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 61 based on novel. So let's start. Oh, the Void Thunder Pool post is on me now. Since you want it so much, if you have the ability, take it yourself. If you don't have the ability, please get out of the way. I have something to do. I don't have time to waste time with you. Xiao Yan grabbed a cold smile at the corner of his mouth and said indifferently, the appearance of the Northern King obviously made these semi-imperialist strong men feel a little afraid. Even the person who spoke just now had a dignified look on his face. Although he is a 7-star-and-a-half emperor, the oppression given to him by the puppet in front of him is no weaker than some other strong semi-emperors at the same level. If he really starts, I'm afraid he can hardly take advantage of the puppet. Damn! How can this puppet be as troublesome as his master? His real strength has exceeded his own realm. With this puppet beside him, Xiao Yang's combat power soared again. It was even more difficult to win him if Xiao Yang's strength is due to the refining degree of his fighting spirit and his high-level fighting skills, then the strength of Beiwang comes from his Numinant Heisei dragon family. The strength of the body is unique. What's more, the body is combined with the 3 dragon kings of the Taishu ancient dragon family. As a royal family, the strength of the body is more powerful than other ordinary people of the dragon family. After being swallowed up by the North Dragon King, the horror of the body is even more unimaginable. Then Xiao Yang refined it into a puppet. With his current strength and the power of thunder obtained by good luck, it's nothing to deal with the strong in the middle of the 7-star-and-a-half emperor. Even when he met the 8-star-and-a-half emperor, with the help of the power of thunder and indestructible body, the North King can also deal with it. The most important thing is that the puppet itself doesn't know the pain. It's like trying hard to fight Saburo. There's no absolute certainty. Who dares to fight one of them? Therefore, with the real combat power of the Northern King, it's no less than the ordinary 8-star-and-a-half emperor. Rock Owl, do you think so many people here will be afraid of your puppet of the 6-star-and-a-half emperor? Although he was afraid of the North King besides Xiao Yang, the 7-star-and-a-half emperor still showed a sneer on his face. Then his right arm was raised high, facing the strong half-emperors behind him, and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, you must sit down again. Everyone wants to get the Void Thunder Pool post in the hands of the Rock Owl, but the Rock Owl is stubborn and doesn't want to let go in such a situation. In that case, let's do it together. Take down the Rock Owl, take out the Void Thunder Pool post, and then we'll make a decision." However, it was a pity that some words fell down in exchange for the big white eyes and disdain of the semi-imperialists. It was clear that Li Gan wanted to use them again. After one time, how could they be fooled again? Xiao Yang also sneered and said, "Ha ha. I said, these are all tricks used by predecessors. You are shameless to use them again. Do you think they are stupid?" When this word came out, the semi-emperor strongman also reacted. Among the semi-emperor strong men behind him, none of them was willing to do it. They all looked at him indifferently. Their eyes seemed ironic and ridicule. Damn, what a bunch of counselors. Oh, since you want to get the thunder post in my hand so much, why don't you try it yourself? This, Xiao Yang's words made those semi-emperor strong men instantly focus their eyes on the 7-star semi-emperor, and the 7-star semi-emperor strong man also showed an iron blue look on his face under the attention of the people. Unexpectedly, after all, he finally talked about himself. Well, since you don't want to put the Void Thunder Pool post, I can only take it for you. After hesitating for a moment, the 7-star-and-a-half emperor finally stood up. After a sneer, he looked at Xiao Yang. Yu Guang couldn't help staring at the North King, who was not used by Xiao Yang again. Then he said to Xiao Yang, "Since we're going to fight, we'll do it in a fair way. You and I fight for 300 rounds. If you lose, give me the Void Thunder Pool post. On the contrary, I'll let you leave here safely." When he said these words, Xiao Yang couldn't help humming coldly. He glanced at the 7-star-and-a-half emperor indifferently and said with a sneer, "Oh, this is what you call fairness? You can get Lei Tai if you win. On the contrary, I can't get anything if I win. What do you want? To let you leave safely is the maximum limit. Don't push an inch. Well, in that case, let him play with you. Anyway, he is also a part of my strength. If you can beat both of us, you will win." The 7-star-and-a-half emperor's face suddenly changed, but he didn't expect Xiao Yang to be so domineering. With this puppet, he dared to force him to obey. Although he was furious in his heart, he obviously knew the power of the North King and didn't dare to touch him easily. In addition, there was Xiao Yang on one side. He had no choice but to him. After a long time, He bit his teeth and said word by word, okay. It's up to you. But you have to promise that you and I will fight then. Your puppet, don't worry, as long as no one bothers him, he will never do it. The words didn't fall, but Xiao Yang continued. The 7.5-star Emperor nodded with satisfaction, looked at Xiao Yang's eyes, with a cold sarcastic smile. He is confident in his heart. Although Xiao Yang is difficult to deal with, he always consumes a lot in order to kill Li Gan. Now if he fights with him again, he has more than 70% confidence to win him. At that time, the Void Lei Kai post will become his bag. Rock Owl, although you are clever, you are still smart in the end, but you are mistaken by smart. Li Gan, who can defeat the 6.5-star Emperor, can never be the opponent of the 7.5-star Emperor. This can be regarded as digging your own grave. With another sneer in his heart, the 7-star Emperor raised his head, looked at Xiao Yang and said with a smile, well, in that case, tell me what you want as a bet. Don't worry, as long as I have it, I will be stingy. When talking, the 7.5-star Emperor also seemed to pat his chest very generously, as if he was very confident in his own things. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also smiled. His eyes turned and said with the same smile, well, in that case, I don't say much. You really don't have what I need, so let's use the spirit coin as a bet first. As soon as he said this, the 7.5-star Emperor immediately frowned, and there was an unhappy look in his eyebrows. Why, do you despise me? I've been on the mainland for so many years. I dare not say anything else, but the things in my hand are not inferior to some small sects. As long as you dare to say, I can't take them out. The old man stared at Xiao Yang with a fierce face, and the meaning in his words was self-evident. Oh! Xiao Yang also raised his eyebrows, and a funny smile came up at the corners of his mouth, saying then, I wonder if there is a black iron in your hand. As soon as the words Yang Meteor Black Iron came out, everyone in the field suddenly looked a little stunned. The 7.5-star Emperor was also stunned. At the thought of what he said just now, an old face was like a fire. After a long time, he coughed twice and said, cough. Rock Owl, don't ask for trouble. What you said, but what has long disappeared, how can I have it? Xiao Yang smiled and continued then, Emperor Pindan Fang, I'm not a medicine refiner, how can I have imperial pill? Rock Owl, don't look for trouble. In that case, I don't have anything else I want, just Ling coin. The 7.5-star Emperor stared at Xiao Yang angrily and said helplessly, come on, how much? Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows, narrowed his eyes and sneered at the 7.5-star Emperor. After a good film, he slowly opened his mouth in the guy's impatient eyes and said word by word, 100,000 spirit coins. Sure, Xiao Yang's 4-word exit surprised everyone present. The 7.5-star Emperor also had a violent convulsion in his face. He wanted to tear Xiao Yang alive in his heart. 100,000 spirit coins. The total number of spirit coins he has received over the years is less than 1 million. Xiao Yang asked for 1/10 of him as soon as he spoke. How can he not be angry? Rock Owl, you are a lion talking. You're joking. You're a 7.5-star Emperor. You're naturally rich. I believe it's just 100,000 spirit coins. You can take it. And has. These 2 words in Xiao Yang's words were repeated in his heart. The anger in the heart of the 7.5-star Emperor was almost out of control. His fists were suddenly clenched under his sleeve robe, and the fighting spirit in his body also moved involuntarily to his whole body. The anger in his eyes soared. After a long time, he forced down his anger, took a deep breath of cold air, held it in his chest, nodded hard to Xiao Yang, and said with difficulty, okay. 100,000 is 100,000. If I lose, I'll give you all. At the moment, the anger in the 7.5-star Emperor's heart has been difficult to restrain. He had to comfort himself in his heart. When he got the Void Thunder Pool post, he entered the Void Thunder Pool. When he came out, he must return Xiao Yang. This also allowed him to calm a little anger in his heart. 100,000 Ling coin? Xiao Yang seemed to ask some strange questions. He forced down his anger in his chest, nodded again, gnashing his teeth and said word by word. Yes, if I lose, you can take 100,000 Ling coins. Oh, Xiao Yang smiled and raised his eyes. He seemed to stare at the former's eyes. People only felt suspicious and didn't know what Xiao Yang meant. What do you mean? The 7.5-star Emperor crossed his face and said in a slightly gloomy tone. Xiao Yang smiled again, glanced at the strong half-emperors around him, finally returned to the 7-star Emperor in front of him, and slowly said sorry, 100,000 spirit coins. That was before. Now, I want 200,000 spirit coins. 200,000. At this moment, it was a group of half-emperor strong men standing around Xiao Yang. Many of them also showed extremely surprised expressions on their faces. They stared at Xiao Yang in the field with unbelievable faces. No one expected that he would be so domineering. The 100,000 spirit coins mentioned earlier were enough for the 7-star and half-emperor to get angry. But now, Xiao Yang changed his bet again in front of others. As soon as he opened his mouth, there were 200,000 spirit coins. Even some semi-emperor strongmen present were afraid they couldn't take them out, not to mention, this fully accounts for 1/5 of all the spirit coins possessed by the 7-star and a half-emperor. This is really a big opening of the lion, the rock owl. Is he trying to annoy him? If so, he's too brave. Tut tut. 200,000 spirit coins. If I had these spirit coins, I would rather not have the empty thunder pool post. After all, as long as there are enough spirit coins, I can buy more cultivation resources. You are wrong. The spirit coin can indeed buy enough cultivation resources and increase the cultivator's cultivation strength, but the difference is, the power obtained by relying on those things will not be as pure as that obtained from the empty thunder pool. Moreover, due to the different cultivation resources in the heart, the impurities left in the cultivator's body after refining will also accumulate. In the end, it is still a kind of damage to the cultivator himself. The power in the void thunder pool is very different. The thunder pool condenses the power of heaven and earth, and the thunder is one of the most powerful and domineering forces in heaven and earth. After swallowing, it will not leave any impurities in its own body, but also condense fighting chi and harden the body. In any way, the benefits of the void thunder pool are far more than ordinary cultivation resources, which is one of the main reasons why so many people want to enter the void minefield. At this moment, the 7-star and a half-emperor also stared at Xiao Yang with his eyes almost eager to breathe fire. The fist under his sleeve robe was clattering. His old face was extremely gloomy, and the anger in his heart was self-evident. 200,000, good. What a rock owl, the old man shouted angrily, and his slightly hoarse voice even showed his inner rage. If the 100,000 spirit coins made his heart angry, the 200,000 spirit coins Xiao Yang said are enough to make him explode in an instant. Rock owl, since you just don't know what's good and what's wrong, you don't want these 100,000 spirit coins. Today, I want you to be both rich and poor, he shouted angrily again. The old man's eyes were red, and his fierce fighting spirit gushed out in an instant. His body moved, and he punched Xiao Yang Meng. Die for me. With a sharp drink, the old man rushed forward at a fast speed. In a moment, he had come to a foot in front of Xiao Yang. Looking at Xiao Yang, who was still unmoved in front of him, the old man looked crazy. Boom. However, the next moment, the light in front of Xiao Yang flashed, and with a dark light flashed, the strong body of the Northern King suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yang, blocking Xiao Yang behind like a hill. Without the slightest hesitation, the North King's body just stabilized. His palm, which was more than twice as wide as that of ordinary people, suddenly clenched and raised his head. His cold and indifferent eyes stared at the 7-star and half-emperor in front of him. His fist was no less powerful than the former, and at the same time, the cold and dry voice of words also shouted from his mouth. Don't hurt my lord. The voice fell, and the North King's powerful punch just hit the old man face to face. With a roar, Bei Wang's strong body was half higher than that of the old man. He suddenly shocked and stepped back half a step. Looking at the old man again, under Bei Wang's fist, it was him who couldn't stop rubbing back. A few meters later, his sleeve robe suddenly waved, and an invisible force came out. His hands were lost behind him. He just felt a little hard to stabilize his body. Damn it. This ghost is so domineering, and its strength is so terrible. If you force it, I'm afraid it's hard to fight the enemy. The old man held his right wrist with his left hand, and his slender fingertips were deeply embedded in the flesh. He forcibly stabilized his violently trembling right arm, and the fighting spirit in his body quickly rushed to his right arm to wipe out the raging thunder. After a long time, the old man looked at the North King, who still kept the fist posture. Although he forced himself to be calm on his face, he was already shocked in his heart. Although Bei Wang suddenly took the lead in that blow, the power of that blow was extremely powerful. Judging from the collision just now, Bei Wang was by no means the opponent he could defeat obliquely. The North King in front of him retreated and stood on Xiao Yang's left side. Xiao Yang looked straight at the old man with a blue and white face opposite. The corners of his mouth sneered and slightly deviated from his head. Why, I can't get the spirit coin, so I'm going to rob it by force. The old man was furious when he heard the speech. With a wave of his big sleeve, he said angrily to Xiao Yang, "Rock Owl, it's the biggest price for me to bet 100,000 spirit coins, but you don't know what's good or bad. The lion opens his mouth and the empty thunder pool post, but it's not worth the price." Xiao Yang slightly raised his eyebrows, but nodded. His 2 fingers moved freely in the void in front of him. The black ring light between his fingers flashed, and a bright silver post about the size of his palm appeared in Xiao Yang's hand. Void minefield post. It's a void minefield post. He took it out. As Lei Tai appeared, the faces of all the semi-imperial strongmen around him changed. They immediately whispered to each other and looked at Lei Tai's eyes full of greed and desire. "Oh, I naturally know that the value of this thunder post is less than 200,000. Since you don't want to take 200,000 spirit coins as a bet, please leave. I believe there are many people who can take 200,000 as a bet except you. You, Rock Owl, don't deceive people too much." The old man stared at Lei Tai in Xiao Yang's hand and scolded angrily again. Xiao Yang raised his chin slightly, raised the corners of his mouth, and aroused a sneer in the shape of ridicule. His eyes swept around a group of semi-emperor strongmen, and finally returned to the old man in front of him, sneering. "Oh, I deceive people too much. It's clear that so many of you have surrounded me here. Now you say I deceive people too much. Don't you think it's ridiculous to say so?" Rock Owl. Although he was very angry in his heart, the old man was speechless. Anyway, the current scene really looked like what Xiao Yang said, but Xiao Yang's actual practice made every one of them helpless. The mutual restraint makes none of them want to shoot. The gun hits the head bird. Moreover, so many people here are equivalent to countless guns pointing at. If anyone does it, it will become the target of public criticism in the end, regardless of success or failure. After all, the North King besides Xiao Yang is really hard to deal with. If he is not careful, he may be pressed back at any time. That situation is not what he wants to see. The old man took a deep breath of the cold air again, which seemed to calm the anger in his chest, but the dark eyes stared at Xiao Yang with a few eager eyes, and the wide palm under his sleeve robe trembled violently. After a good film, the old man, a powerful half-emperor with the strength of 7 stars, finally completely compromised in front of Xiao Yang, who was the weakest 3-star half-emperor at the scene. "Okay. 200,000. 200,000. If you. Don't worry, I know this is your bottom line and won't add any more." Xiao Yang suddenly showed a warm smile on his face. In the eyes of the old man, it was so cold and ironic. The old man stared at Xiao Yang with cold eyes. The tip of his nose gave a cold hum. His palm leaned out and held it out of thin air. A broad knife suddenly appeared in the palm. Holding the handle, the sharp blade pointed to the ground. The cold light made people feel a chill when they looked at it. The whole body of this saber is dark black, and its size is no less than Xiao Yang's dark ruler. The heavy body of the saber, coupled with a strange rune on the body of the saber, and the cold shining blade make this broadsword more domineering. Starting with the broadsword, the old man suddenly became more confident. The palm holding the handle circled, the backhand held the handle, and took advantage of the situation. The elbow butted against the back of the knife with 3 fingers wide. The wrist spread to the elbow with force. With fierce force, he waved the broadsword diagonally upward and cut it out. The blade full of killing spirit immediately crossed the void and faced Xiao Yang. At the same time, in the vibration of the blade, an invisible knife chi flashed across the void and chopped at Xiao Yang. This move was made before the official action. It was also a test of Xiao Yang's strength by the 7-star and a half-emperor. In the face of the invisible Dao Qi coming from the front, Xiao Yang was also surprised at the old man's means. On the premise of not using any energy, with the sword Qi of the weapon itself, you can use the weapon to this extent. I'm afraid this broadsword has followed the 7-star and a half-emperor for some years. Compared with weapons, Xiao Yang's Xian heavy ruler has followed him for decades. In front of this Dao Qi, he is naturally unwilling to fall behind. Ruler. Put away the void thunder pool post. Xiao Yang suddenly crossed his chest with his right arm and grasped it in the void on the left. The light in the void flashed suddenly, and the Xian heavy ruler fell into Xiao Yang's palm. Starting with the heavy ruler, Xiao Yang's arm made a fierce effort to sweep the giant ruler across the void in front of him. Finally, after the giant ruler circled in Xiao Yang's palm for a week, Xiao Yang held the handle of the ruler with both hands and inserted the giant ruler into the earth in front of him. Bang! At the same time, in the void between Xiao Yang and the old man, there was a dull sound. Xiao Yang and the old man looked at each other, and their hearts were awe-inspiring. Those semi-imperialist strong men around looked at the situation in the field and whispered among themselves. The atmosphere in the field also became depressed. This alone can't hold me down. Raised his eyes, Xiao Yang stared at the old man opposite, and spoke slowly in a flat tone. You have some foundation, but I don't want to overwhelm you with this. Isn't that boring? The old man was a little surprised at Xiao Yang's foot, but he didn't take it to heart. These are only one-sided after all. Only by really starting, can we really judge the strength of both sides. The voice fell. The old man waved his arm suddenly, and the broadsword left his hand. He ruthlessly tilted into the earth. His body moved and wanted to rush towards Xiao Yang. Wait. Just when the 7-star and half-emperor wanted to make a move, and the strong half-emperor around thought that the good play was about to begin, Xiao Yang spread out his fingers, stretched out his left arm and made a forbidden gesture to the old man, and shouted at the same time. This cry fell, and the people looked at it in a twinkling of an eye. The 7-star and half-emperor old man also stopped his body in a hurry. Then he looked at Xiao Yang angrily. His anger that had not subsided in his heart rose again, and he shouted angrily, saying, "Rock Owl, what do you mean? Do you want to go back on what you just said?" At this moment, the anger in the old man's heart can't be suppressed completely. As the great 7-star and half-emperor, the strongest in this wild ancient city except for a few people, today he suffered losses one after another in front of Xiao Yang, a 3-star and half-emperor. If it's spread, won't he become a laughingstock among all the strong semi-emperors in the future? How can he bear it? Rock Owl, you tease me again and again. Do you really think I can't make it out of mud? The old man suddenly moved and shot at Xiao Yang. At the moment, his anger is hard to calm in his chest. Now, he must pay a painful price for Xiao Yang's behavior. No one can stop him. Drink. The rock owl is dead. In the twinkling of an eye, the old man had come to a few feet in front of Xiao Yang. With a big hand, the broadsword pulled out as if it had received an order. In an instant, it flew into the old man's palm. The blade lifted up and wanted to chop down to Xiao Yang's head. Xiao Yang's face changed suddenly at this moment. Unexpectedly, this guy said to do it, but he didn't want to listen to him anymore. Helpless, Xiao Yang had to move his mind. The strong body of the Northern King suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yang. Ha ha! Rock Owl, you like to play and disappear every time. You have to make such a big noise every time you come out. It's hard for us old guys to know. However, just when the old man wanted to give Xiao Yang a hand, and Xiao Yang was about to let the North King take the knife, the void between the two was distorted. Then, an old man in hemp slowly appeared in front of everyone. When the old man appeared, all the people in the field immediately changed their faces. Xiao Yang finally showed a relaxed smile when the old man in sackcloth appeared. His eyes looked at the old man in sackcloth who had just appeared. The latter smiled, but didn't say much. At the same time, the 7-star and a half-emperor rushed forward and stopped fiercely. With a turn of his wrist, he ruthlessly inserted the broadsword in his hand into the earth in front of him, which completely stabilized his body. Jiu Lei. The 7-star and a half-emperor suddenly felt extremely dignified in his heart. Jiu Lei's strength was definitely in the top 5 of the wild ancient city. He had a good relationship with Xiao Yang. At present, he appeared at this time. He was afraid he had already arrived here. He was just observing the situation, so he never appeared. Turning around, Jiu Lei looked at the 7-star and a half-emperor with a smile. His eyes seemed to sweep the broadsword he had pulled out. His old eyes narrowed and smiled faintly. Look at this broadsword. If I guess well, you should be the broadsword Lu Du. The old man smiled awkwardly when he heard the speech, and his anger immediately dissipated. He bowed slightly to Gu Li and said with an arched smile, "Hehe, these are all the names in the past. Now I have received the knife and am ready to retire to the mountains and forests. The name of broadsword is gone." Xiao Yang also slightly raised his eyebrows when he heard the speech. Until now, he didn't know the name of the 7-star and a half-emperor. Lu Du. Oh. He answered casually. Gu Li didn't go too much. These are not important to him. Gu Li turned his eyes and looked at Xiao Yang. The latter smiled and nodded, jumped forward, stood next to Gu Li, looked at Lu Du and said with a smile, "Hehe, Lu Daoyu was a little worried just now. Now I've made a bet with you. How can I change it again? After all, I'm not such a dishonest person." Xiao Yang's words made all the powerful emperors around turn their backs. Lu Du wanted to scold Xiao Yang at this moment. Being trustworthy, he would change the originally agreed 100,000 spirit coins into 200,000 in an instant. This is too boastful. Xiao Yang noticed the eyes of the people around him, felt his nose with his hand, coughed twice, and continued. The reason why I interrupted you just now is to simply know that my Thunder Post has been taken out as a bet. Then I think your 200,000 spirit coins should also. Although the words were not finished, everyone present threw strange eyes at Xiao Yang. Lu Du had a violent convulsion at the corners of his mouth, and an unknown fire burst out in his heart. That's all I've been doing for so long. At the moment, even Jiu Lei beside Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing. He didn't take it back until he saw the expression on Xiao Yang's face, and his old face regained a solemn look. He also did not expect that Xiao Yang would doubt the promise made by a semi-imperial strongman in public. Perhaps, this is indeed Xiao Yang for the sake of insurance, but where does this act put other people's Lu? After all, he is a 7-star-and-a-half emperor, and pays more attention to his face. Xiao Yang's doing so is indeed inappropriate. At the moment, although Naludu was angry, Jiu Lei was helpless to Xiao Yang because he was beside Xiao Yang. Therefore, after a bitter sigh at the bottom of his heart, he had to stretch out his 2 helpless fingers, and the light between his fingers flashed. A crystal card with 9 different color lines appeared in Ludu's hands. That's enough. When they saw the crystal card, they immediately showed a look of surprise. Even Jiu Lei on the side of Xiao Yang looked surprised at Nalu. 9-grain crystal card. The value of this card is really worth 200,000 spirit coins. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang was stunned. He looked at Jiu Lei and asked, 9-grain crystal card, what is this? Old Jiu Lei narrowed his eyes and stared at Lu Du. He paused on the 9-grain crystal card in his hand. Then he said, 9-grain crystal card, which is a gold card commonly used in mainland China, is more valuable than ordinary gold coins. A 9-grain crystal card requires 200,000 spirit coins. Generally speaking, this kind of thing can only be owned by some herbalists or fighting emperors. After all, it is too expensive for most people to get. Even I got one for convenience only a few years ago. I want to buy it less than. Oh, it looks good. Xiao Yang rubbed his chin with his fingers, narrowed his eyes and stared at the 9-grain crystal card in Ludu's hand, sneering in his heart. Then, I'm welcome. In the wild ancient city, Xiao Yang and Ludu stand in the void. From here, they can overlook the whole wild ancient city. When Xiao Yang looks down and sees the outline of the whole wild ancient city, he can't help being a little cold in his heart. The wild ancient city is much larger than he imagined. No wonder so many semi-imperial strong men can gather here. There must be treasures in prosperous places, which is a truth understood by many practitioners, and the semi-imperial strong is no exception. Looking up, Xiao Yang and Lu, who are hundreds of miles away from each other, looked at each other and smiled. They seemed to be old friends for many years, but no one knew what tyranny was hidden under that smile. With Lu Du's temperament, once he takes action later, he will burst out all the qi he has received before. Once Xiao Yang can't resist, the consequences are not difficult to imagine. Compared with the size of the people outside, Xiao Yang has a calm face and always has an indifferent smile on his mouth. The soldiers will block the water and earth. What's more, in the face of the 7-star-and-a-half emperor, Xiao Yang can deal with it freely. The so-called can't stand it. It depends on who it is. At the moment, the atmosphere in the field is also extremely tense and depressed. The emptiness within 1,000 feet of Xiao Yang's body has been completely blocked by Jiu Lei and several other high-level semi-emperors. Before the end of the war between Xiao Yang and Ludu, the blockade will not be removed, and all the aftershocks caused by the war between the two people in this space will not spread out. This practice is the rule of the mainland. The strong must introduce the battle circle into the endless void. Only in this way can we ensure that the external cities will not be damaged. Like the previous battle circles in the void, they are all carried out in the endless void. Jiu Lei looked at Xiao Yang with some worry in his eyes, but when he saw the plain look on the latter's face, Jiu Lei couldn't help but look a little frozen. Xiao Yang's strength was naturally clear to him. With this strength, no one could calmly deal with Lu Du, the 7-star-and-a-half emperor. At present, Xiao Yang had this plain expression on his face. It's really weird. After looking at Xiao Yang deeply, Jiu Lei turned his eyes to Lu Du again. All the appearance of Lu Du when he was angry was observed by Jiu Lei. At the moment, he was going to fight Xiao Yang. Jiu Lei could not help but feel uneasy. After a little thought, Jiu Lei's turbid old eyes stared at Lu Du. His tone seemed flat, but implied an overbearing meaning. Hihi, you too, You must understand that no matter what the war situation is, you must get to the point. As long as one of you admits defeat and the other, you can't continue to fight. If you force your hand, don't blame me. Hearing Jiu Lei's words, Lu Du's face changed slightly. Jiu Lei's words were obviously aimed at him, but he sneered at it. With Jiu Lei present, he naturally dared not beat Xiao Yang seriously. Besides, his current goal is the Void Thunder Pool post. If he is too cruel, he will inevitably fall into the conversation. Based on the relationship between Jiu Lei and Xiao Yang, he has to intervene horizontally. Therefore, he won't go too far for the Void Thunder Pool post. Xiao Yang also smiled after hearing Jiu Lei's words. He didn't speak, but looked at Lu Du opposite, and his mouth slowly aroused a playful smile. In this way, I can't give full play. Well, let me try. It takes a few feet to deal with the 7-star and half emperor. The voice fell, Xiao Yang stretched out his hand, and the Xian heavy ruler fell into his palm. The ruler suddenly waved, and Xiao Yang waved and cut out towards Lu Du. The flame devours the wave ruler. The rainbow's sharp shot covered most of the void, and the surrounding space burst at this moment. Nalu was the first to attack Xiao Yang, but he couldn't help but show a sneer on his face. Xiao Yang's momentum was the same. The dark black broadsword flew and circled in his hand. A knife fell, and the knife's horn was drawn out to face Xiao Yang's flame. Bang! Kai Mang and the Dao Mang offset each other, but Xiao Yang set off together. The huge ruler waved and the broadsword broke the air. In a moment, they collided fiercely. Chong! 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 Their moves are all open and close. Every collision between the giant ruler and the broadsword makes the world tremble. The momentum is still terrible. The residual power is raging in this space. Only a moment later, the two have collided back and forth for hundreds of rounds, and the fierce battle has just begun. The people outside were also surprised by the fierce collision. They didn't expect that with Xiao Yang's strength, they could not lose in the fierce collision with Lu Du, the 7-star and half emperor. Moreover, according to the current war situation, the battle between them is becoming more and more intense. They can't see which is stronger or weaker. If someone who doesn't know it sees it, surely you will think that this is a battle between two strong men of the same level. In the field at the moment, compared with the surprise of the outside world, Lu Du was shocked at the moment. He thought that with the strength of his 7-star and half emperor, he could defeat Xiao Yang, but unexpectedly, in every collision with Xiao Yang, the power from the latter was not weaker than him, which shocked him, also had no small doubt about Xiao Yang's real strength. In front of Xiao Yang, his strength is really like what it looks like. Is there only 3 stars and half emperors? Or did he use some kind of secret method to hide his strength? But no matter what level Xiao Yang's real level is, at least Xiao Yang in front of him can't deal with it easily. The battle with Xiao Yang is not as calm as he imagined. At the moment, Lu Du has really developed a dignified heart towards Xiao Yang. If he wants to defeat Xiao Yang, he must show his real skills. Otherwise, it will be difficult to win Xiao Yang. Drink. With a sharp drink, Lu Du suddenly waved his broadsword, and the fighting spirit in his body quickly gathered. A little red fighting spirit appeared on the dark broadsword. Then the blade shook and rushed towards Xiao Yang again. When Xiao Yang saw this, the light in his eyes flickered, and the giant ruler in his hand stopped. Are you going to be serious at last? I can't wait long. With a sneer, Xiao Yang held the ruler handle in his right hand and pulled it out with a fierce force. His left palm stroked the ruler body. Different fire surged in the palm. The dark giant ruler was immediately rendered into a gorgeous color. Drink. With a fierce drink, the giant ruler stood obliquely behind him and nodded slightly. Xiao Yang raised his eyes and stared at the opposite Lu Du. His left foot took half a step forward, his body bowed slightly, his palm clenched the ruler handle, and his fighting spirit was injected into the giant ruler without money. The gorgeous fire is rising at this moment, just like a gorgeous flag flying upward. For a moment, the void was surprisingly quiet, and a strange atmosphere enveloped the world. Everyone was silent, with dignified light in their eyes, staring at Xiao Yang's giant ruler in the field and the broadsword in Lu Du's hand standing opposite Xiao Yang. Silent. Dead silence. Everyone held their breath, and the subtle breath was enough to be heard clearly. After a long time, the silence was finally broken by a cold voice with a slight hoarseness and no emotion. I created this saber by condensing my whole life. I call it garrison. Garrison. A simple word, but at the moment of its sound, made the world tremble. When the saber technique was practiced to the unity of heaven and man, he could not move forward anymore. Therefore, Cultivating such a saber was Lu Du's memorial to his broadsword. The power of this saber can be imagined. Lu can reach this level now, but it is not in vain. Although Xiao Yan is not weak, he also has his own pride. The pride of being a strong man. Rock Owl, if you can take it, I am willing to lose. This video will end here.